Yeah, right.
Dude, that was the biggest kicker for me at the time to say, nah, I'm done. I'm not going to continue my military career. I don't want
demanding.
Because I extended my second tour. I actually extended.
Yeah.
Because my 4-year contract was up.
And you didn't even have kids, and you still were like
3 months into the deployment. Some of the guys that I came in with, and this is the thing about the regular Army. I had one dude, Coleman. If you ever listen to this, shout out to you. He and I were in the same basic training company. He was in 1st platoon. I was in 2nd platoon because of the alphabet. He was a C. I was a D. So I ended up in 2nd platoon. He was in 1st platoon.
I was in 2nd platoon as well.
I did. Not only did I go through basic training with him, we went to the same unit, to the same battalion, the same company, the same platoon.
And I've heard his name. I've heard you mention him before.
For our entire career. I spent with him my entire fucking career. Another guy was Swindle. Eric Swindle.
I've heard his name as well.
Shout out to Eric. But entire career. That doesn't happen, I feel like, anymore. And the reason why I feel like it doesn't happen anymore is because of the surge and because of the way things were run. So when I became an NCO, technically, by the book, when you become an E5, you get the fuck out of wherever you are. Mm-hmm. You go to another company, you go to another brigade, you go to another unit. Because you can't run. You cannot be a leader for people who are just
They see it as conflict of interest, yes. And I don't blame them. Yeah.
At the time, not true. You're an E5.
Well, because you
better go fuck up your homies because they fucked up.
Yeah. Well, like you said, the surge. So you just, it's a little bit of just dealing with what you're. It's a shit sandwich, and you just kind of got to be like, look, we can't even. We need all hands on deck, and you can't go somewhere else now. You just have to.
For me, though,
you just have to
becoming an E5 and being in charge of my buddies was the singular strongest leadership experience or course I've ever had to go through.
I believe that. I was about to say, I don't think you... there might have been challenges, but I don't think you struggled. I'm sure you didn't, like, fail or...
It was hard as fuck.
No matter who you are, it's going to be.
Hard as fuck.
No matter who you are, it's going to be. But if you're the right type of person to draw lines around, we're here for this, and also, when you're off... You can have a good time. It's a rare type of person that could be a leader, especially in a combat platoon. Like, we're talking about dangerous stuff that you're training for. You might not even find. Maybe you might be one of the few people that could be that leader and also balance that you were buddies with them before. And that is so tremendously difficult. That might be impossible, but if anybody could.
I was fortunate enough that 2 of my buddies weren't very far behind me in becoming NCOs, which made it easier.
Smoother, yeah.
And on top of that, we had gotten a bunch of new... So that 6-week period, we had gotten like 25 new or 30 new privates.
Oh, that helps it.
But
they
you
see
have to
you in the leadership sense right away.
So they already see me as an NCO.
Right.
My buddies, who are specialists, E4 Mafia, shout out to those people.
Tough.
Don't look at you in that way because you're the same dude that I was doing push-ups with a couple of weeks ago. You're the same dude that I went through basic training with. That's why if
you want to make this work, your approach to that leadership can't just be the typical military, I'm going to yell and not think and consider and I'm just going to yell. Like, that's not going to work in that scenario at all. That's not going to... You have to be someone who engages and has depth to their leadership and can... manage complex situations. You can't just be this linear. It's not gonna make it work. It's gonna be real bad. Actually, that person's gonna go from that might be best friends with someone, and then once they make them the leadership, depending on which Kool-Aid they drink, or depending on if they drink the Kool-Aid or if they stay in their old mindset, that person could immediately be not your friend.
Yeah,
immediately.
Yep.
It's tough. It's tough. Especially if they drink the Kool-Aid, you know what I mean by that. Like if they're just like, well, Army's my career, and I'm not hating on that. I shouldn't say it like that, but yeah, they'll be like, well, this is my career, and like you're just a friend, which not wrong necessarily.
Yeah,
but it's complicated.
A lot of people don't have the wherewithal to turn that switch on appropriately.
No.
Though. You know, especially with your homies, especially with all the guys that you were with for every single shitty.
I agree.
Here's the thing too, like with Coleman, for example. Every shitty experience I've ever had in the Army, that dude was right there next to me.
Right.
He knows exactly how I was feeling. Because I would complain to him like, fuck this NCO, fuck that NCO.
Right.
LT has no idea what he's doing. He's a piece of shit. And then the next day you got to turn around and be like, oh, now I'm the NCO.
Especially when you don't agree with orders, but you just have to deliver orders. Especially. Because you were complaining about things that you're probably well within your rights to complain about. And then the next day, because you are leadership and you don't get to make decisions, everybody above you does, you have to deliver the same thing.
Which is a funny thing to point out because most people think that you get into leadership and now you're making the direction.
No,
you're the one making those choices.
I never see. I think that's how I was able to not hate people. Like my drill sergeants, I never hated. There was one that everybody like hated. Like I didn't care. Were they nicer to me than everybody else? That's why. No, I just didn't care.
I
remember that it's their job. I don't take it personally, and a lot of people they just have such a hard time like separating that.
I remember at the end of for us when we went through basic training, there was like a check the box of the best drill sergeant, the worst drill sergeant, etc.
Oh, yeah, we didn't have that.
So, well, because what they did is the commander and the first sergeant would take that and they would write the NCOERs for these drill sergeants for each cycle.
I think that's the right thing to do.
So if you got written down as a bad drill sergeant for whatever reason, that might reflect negatively on your NCOER. It might.
Right.
This one dude, I think his name was Drill Sergeant Delgado, and I think I remember him being National Guard. And I remember him coming out, and I think we were his last cycle.
Oh, these National Guard.
So we were. This was well. You got to remember, everybody that was worthwhile was deployed,
right?
Because everybody was going to the surge. Right. So you're getting National Guard guys. You're not getting regular Army guys.
Yeah. I don't think I saw that. So that's fair.
I remember ripped out. This is the last day. You're in final formation in your Class A's. You're ready to go. You got your units. You got your orders to go to your next unit. I'm going home for 2 weeks. F this place.
Over. Like, it's over. Right. There's no more brain fucking.
Storming out of the barracks, cussing like crazy because for like the third time in a row, he was voted worst drill sergeant.
Oh, that's his own fault.
And he slammed his...
That's his own fault.
He slammed his lid on the ground and stomped the shit out of his drill sergeant hat and just left.
That's when... So that actually would scare me more than just the typical drill sergeant because he means it. That's not his job. He actually is upset. And is like, so when they're just drill sergeanting, who cares? That's their job.
Right.
But when they're actually like, that makes me go, whoa, that guy's like out. That guy is legitimately upset. Like he's outside of the zone of I'm playing a role. Yeah, he's.
Well, let's keep going. One of the things I want to ask you about is when you were deployed. Yeah. I know that obviously everybody has a different experience when they're deployed. Obviously, and here's the other thing.
The theme of the pod is different experiences.
Well, sure, but I think what's unique about, and a lot of people don't understand, is there's this weird area, gray area for deployments. And what I mean by that is just because you're a 35 Golf doesn't mean you haven't been shot at. Doesn't mean you haven't been blown up.
That's true.
If you are an 11 Bravo, it also doesn't mean that
true.
Yeah, that you've been in those situations.
There's tendencies, but yeah.
Because you can be an 11 Bravo, be the biggest bag of garbage.
Never even deploy. Maybe never even deploy.
Well,
or if
you would have to deploy, but you would be in the TOC.
Right. Yeah.
You've never done anything. You've never shook hands with an Iraqi other than to get your hair cut down at the market, on Saturday or whatever.
Right.
So what I find interesting about that is when people hear like you've deployed, you've got a bunch of people who haven't done anything talk about things like they have done things. And you've got another subset of people who have never done anything who refuse to talk about anything because it's.
What do you mean haven't done anything? And what do you mean like? So what are these? Who are these people you're describing? Like,
so.
Are you talking about the insufferable veteran who continues to talk about?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought you were talking about.
I remember having a conversation with somebody, and they didn't know I was also a veteran, and I'm sitting with this one guy. That's happened to me a lot. I'm sitting with two guys. One of them I know it's my wife's cousin's husband. Great dude.
Sure.
Never served, but he's just awesome dude.
Sure.
He's sitting there with me. We're having a conversation with this third guy who literally at one point said, "You should thank me for your freedom because of everything I've done." And I turned around and I was like...
Too self-serving guy.
Do you know what I said? I said, no, I don't owe you a fucking thing.
Nobody does.
Because you volunteered.
Right.
Remember,
did you tell him that you had served yet?
Not at that point.
Ooh, I love it. Because he's like,
and then he got upset.
Dare this person?
He's like, what have you done? What do you know? You don't know what I've done. And that's when you're like, oh, actually,
right.
I did serve. I did do my 2 deployments. And guess what? I volunteered.
I just have something called humility. You may want to drink a little bit of that into you, but
so your experience, your first deployment, both of them were to Afghanistan.
Yes.
The first one was. Were they in the same place?
No. Okay. So the first one was in northern Afghanistan. And this is going to be... I'm loving this conversation. So this is so my two deployments were extreme. Well, mostly because we should have done this before. Anyways, so my two deployments, but you don't think of it until it's almost like when you again. And I love that point you brought up earlier when you monologue and you realize you can learn even from just it's true. Anyways, so my two deployments very different. Even for already saying that my job was different than the infantry guys in my unit, my two deployments are even still different than what other people in my job in my unit did. So the first one was a typical 35 Golf, 12 Yankee deployment for Rangers. I deployed with 1st Battalion. I deployed with one of their how did they split it up? So they had action. They had different wow. I get so far away and I can't remember the terms anymore. Well, the strike forces. They had different strike forces throughout the whole country, right?
2013, right?
The first one's 13, end of 13 to early 14. Yes. Okay. So they're strike forces throughout the whole country, and this is why I brought this up. I can't remember if they split it. I don't know how they split it inside the battalions. So I was with one of the strike forces inside of 1st Battalion. I don't know if it was like a company or I don't know, but I'm with the strike force. And my first one was a very typical deployment where I sat in the fob and would pull up imagery and build maps for targets we had that they were going to go out on.
Okay.
That's it, basically it. So we had a whole jock skiff inside of our jock and
jock Joint Operations Command?
Yes.
Or Joint Operations Center?
Yes. Yep.
No, what's
Joint Operations Center, yeah. SCIF is a secure compartmentalized intelligence facility. I think.
Okay.
Sometimes you see in the news, Congress has like a SCIF in the basement of Congress, which makes sense because they need to know sensitive things.
What's going on? Right.
Right. So, my first deployment with 1st Bat, basically the intel team finds targets. Okay. Once the targets are confirmed, because I want to make clear about what my job is in intel. It's not to help find and confirm targets. That's not what my job was. The 35 Foxes, general source, 35.
So they would use like HUMINT.
SIGINT, HUMINT. I can't remember what the 35H was HUMINT. But
so it's human intelligence, signals
intelligence, so and then there's all source intelligence as well, where they would pull everything together and build the picture.
So they would build the packet.
Correct.
For the target.
Exactly.
Once the packet is built,
we've got some evidence here in different ways.
They would say, hey, Cyril, we're going to this courtyard because we believe a high-value target is going to be at this location at this time.
Imagery,
we need to know what the hell's
maps.
over there.
Correct, yep.
That's when you would explain this.
So I would build maps and imagery every day, all day long. Because, and you probably know this, most people probably know this intuitively, there's plenty of potential targets. Not many that we actually action on. So we need to prepare for all these people that we could possibly action on. So that was my job. Just, we've got 7 new targets that we might have identified yesterday. Can you build maps and can you pull imagery for what we have identified as their bed down locations? You know, the maps are for the briefings mostly, and the imagery. So the guys would go in, and I don't know if the technology is better now. This is 7 years ago. They would have quarterback sleeves, and they would have the imagery, and I would label buildings and intersections.
Gotcha.
To have points of reference. So when you go in and there's squirters, whatever. Exactly.
And the important thing about that is for somebody who, let's say you're team leader, you're targeting action on building number 13.
Yep.
You know something's going on in building 15.
Yep.
You'd be able to call that in via the radio and eliminate or hopefully prevent friendly fire.
Right.
Make sure you identify where people are going.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. Just do whatever
job you had to do. So that was tour 1. You were building packets for targets.
Yeah, and it was
or
really
helping to.
Yeah, it was really that simple. It was not, which is typically what you get in the military. This is your job. This is you do. Mm-hmm. Not difficult, not complex.
You're a cog in the machine.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
Second deployment was different. So
2014
to 15.
14 to 15. Okay.
So between the first and the second deployment, my leadership liked me. They thought that I was sharp. Could I do as many bench presses as other people? No. But they thought I was sharp. They thought I was good at like doing the job. So they had an opportunity in between, after my first deployment, they were approached by, I don't know, I'm not privy to these things because I was a specialist, but they were approached by our recon guys, Ranger recon guys.
The lures.
About adding an intel person, embedding an intel person in their deployments as well. So these guys would deploy plain clothed. They would deploy, like, they could grow beards because they were recon guys, right? Like, it was part of their job. It was part of what they did. So already off the bat, this is a way different deployment because I get to wear civilian clothes, right? And you can't explain, and you know this. It's difficult to explain. The Army is so rigid and structured. It's difficult to explain the kind of privilege to be able to show up to work for a couple weeks before I deploy with a beard and civvies when everybody else is in uniforms. It was wild.
It signifies you as what we would call a BAMF.
It signifies that you're different, right? People know you're different when they see you. You're standing out as different.
You're better.
Typically, that's what people think.
Yes.
Typically, maybe not all the time, but yeah, typically that's right.
But I'm sure that week you showed up with that beard before your deployment.
Everybody's asking questions all week.
You were strutting.
Yeah. Oh, even subconsciously. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even subconsciously, there's just a different feel to it. Yes. Yeah. No doubt. I can't even deny it.
You gotta own it.
And people come up and no doubt. And people come up and they're always asking, like, why are you? What's going on? Like, are you about to get thrown in army jail? Why are you dressed like this? Why do you have a beard? So already that's way different. So I go on this deployment, and I quickly learn. I'm trying to think. I was the second person to do this unique deployment. Someone went before me. I think it was Sergeant Landa.
And this is for the recon.
This is for the recon.
Okay.
Yeah. So someone had already done it before me. So there was a lot of time in between. Someone already did. So I was going to do the second one. So the first person that went was supposed to do a lot of setup, was supposed to do a lot of so he was a tabbed sergeant. And as you know in the Army, it's not necessarily about who you are as a person that will earn your respect. People in my unit see your tab and they think you're Jesus. So he was the only one with a tab that was kind of lower in our group. So he was the first one to get this unique deployment.
Gotcha.
Because he has a tab.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the actual job. This is how the Army works. You just have the tab. You get to go first.
That's how the unit works.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're right. Not necessarily the Army with the tab, but yeah. So he went first. He was supposed to do a lot of setup, and he did. He did a great job. But I quickly realized when I got there, again, and this is a theme, the military is usually very rigid and static. I got there, I realized I was in a job that is so effing new. Nobody could have set this up in the first 6. So first deployment's 4 months, typical. This one's 6 months because the recon guys do different stuff, right? There's a different level, different. So I get there and I realize that this isn't nobody. I had nobody in charge of me. Okay, I could dress in civilian clothes. I had Wi-Fi. I had my own room. We were separate on the fob.
Did you have a gator?
The rest of the fob is what you think an Army fob is. Strict. Everyone's in uniform. People can get yelled at if they're lower ranking, especially me. But our part of the fob...
PT belts?
No. Yeah, yes.
Gotta have your
but our
PT
part of the
belt?
fob? Nope. We had 4-wheelers and we could go out off the fob and 4-wheel in the mountains. I have pictures. Wherever you post this, I should share them with you. But it was wild as hell.
Yeah.
I was able to go on it. So again, like I said, the first person that went on it was tabbed, so that's why they picked him. I was able to go on it because, and that's why I brought this up in the beginning, they did think that we do 2-week trainings in different cities when you're in the States as part of the regiment. And we did one in Nashville before the second deployment. Okay. And I did a really good job, right? So they would build these big, elaborate trainings that we would all travel for 2 weeks and do. And as you can imagine, there's more of a spotlight when you're doing this big training everyone's traveling for, and you're in the room with all the command ship every day. It's not like a normal day in the Army.
Right.
They see you.
Right.
So I did a really good job there. And even if your leadership doesn't like you, which they did, but even if your leadership doesn't like you as much as if you get someone else higher up that's like, you better fucking send Cyril, you're going to get sent. Right. So that's kind of what happened. They were just he did a great job. We'd like him to. Yeah. The recon guys were there too, and they were like, he did a great job. We'd like him to. So yeah, because of that, I got to do that. And it's just so hard to you build this, and I can already tell talking to you. You build this idea of what you think something is because you went through it. I went through the Army.
Yeah.
But my experiences were extremely unique. And I'm extremely thankful, because we can go on and talk about other things if you want to.
Yeah.
I'm extremely thankful of that fateful decision to make sure that we all got a weekend, and I raised my hand to volunteer to go to the Ranger tryout.
Right.
Because if that doesn't happen,
none of this happens. You go to Korea.
None of it. I go to Korea for sure, 100%.
And you're no different than any other 35 golf.
Yes.
Through their cycle.
Yeah. Right. And you know what? To be honest, and now I'm thinking more about just me, and I'm no different post Army either way. But my experiences are so different now. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I feel like I disagree with you. I bet you there would be a difference.
I feel like I'm disagreeing with myself as well. Just because even subconsciously, like you can't understand what you might be like with different experience. So I think you're probably right.
I think, and this is just me looking from the outside in. Obviously,
still thankful
we're brothers, so I've seen you grow up.
Yeah.
To me, the type of guy you were before you joined, for whatever reason,
interested in this.
Not a ton of confidence.
True.
You were not a very confident person.
No, and I don't know why. Well, I know why.
To me, that was the biggest change that had occurred. Because you went, and I think that because you raised your hand, because you got into an elite unit, because you were doing things that other people weren't, I think slowly you realized, oh, wait a minute, I have a certain capability.
Yeah, you build that confidence when there's a positive feedback off.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really did a lot for you.
I agree.
And that's my next question. And that is
really
what
quick
else?
Before you ask this?
Okay.
Good question to ask is, would that have happened anyways, just growing up? Or did the Army, but go ahead with your question. I don't know. You can't know the answer.
You can't.
No, you can't. I'm just.
But if I can speculate, I think it accelerated.
I agree.
That.
I think that's factual. How much?
True.
I agree.
But the next question is, what other positive aspects or good things do you feel like you took from being in the service, doing what you did, spending your time there? Because you did 3.5 years, 4 years? I can't remember.
I got it. One of the biggest, So
3.5 or 4?
3 3/4. 3.5.
We can round up.
Yeah, it was stupid. It was like a weird, So, 3.5. Because April to September. Because I got out early. Remember, I got out early for school.
Oh,
I applied for it and got it, which never happened.
No, it doesn't.
And the only reason it happened was it had a lot to do with that second deployment and who I was.
Gotcha.
And they let it go. But yeah, anyways. What were you saying? Oh, yeah. I think the biggest thing that I have taken away, there's tons of things. We could do this for hours. But one of the biggest things for me is there is a beautiful thing that happens when you are forced to do things sometimes, especially when you're forced to go through things with other people. There's something that you build that can't be replicated unless you go through some forced garbage with people, right? Like when life is easy, when there's no challenges, your mindset and who you are is your disposition towards other people can be so different, as opposed to someone finally basically spitting you in your face and say, no, buck up and get through this even though you don't want to. And when you do that, especially when you do that with other people, very difficult to understand how different the bonds are there as opposed to the civilian world. It's just so different. I miss every day. And I beat myself up too. I'm not saying other people suck. I'm included in that. I miss every day being forced to do that because there's so many times now, and it will continue because we're human beings. Mm-hmm. I don't beat myself up too much, but it will continue where I should be doing something where I'm not, or I should be more productive and I'm not. And there's a part of me that does miss that, get it done. We don't care. And you do it together with people. And I think that a lot of veterans, when they get out, because I struggle with it a little bit, not that bad, but it's so different to be in the working world here as opposed to the military, and how you build bonds and how people lead, right? And how people interact. And it's just a challenge. It's a challenge. But for me, that helped me, because you don't know what you can achieve until you truly have to go through something garbage that you didn't want to go through. But the thing is, unless you have that thing in your life that forces you to do it, it's very tough. I don't blame people. It's very tough to get to that state.
Well, it's kind of like earlier when I was talking about the push-ups. You realize that there's another ceiling.
Exactly.
This isn't.
But you need that thing that pushes you to that realization. You can't get there. You truly can't just will yourself there. You have to have. It's unique to have that situation. To not even have the choice to leave is unique to feel. And if you always have the choice, then it's just different. So, but again, I think a lot of people struggle with that transition. I think that's where a lot of struggle comes from with veterans, and I had that a little bit. But for me personally, that did a lot of good for me. It actually made me, again, to your point, more confident, and it made me more capable. It made me more capable. It made me more comforting. It comforted me. It comforted me knowing who because I thought I was a person who couldn't achieve that much. I think that's where some of the lack of confidence comes from, right? You don't, because I never pushed myself. And also, when you don't push yourself, it's kind of a cop out, but like you don't even know you can. And when you get pushed there, it's a good feeling for me to know, like, oh, like, hell yeah, yo.
Well,
like,
it changes your expectations.
Yeah, right. Because you recalibrate them because you're like, oh shit, I did that.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things I went through, more so with the military than anything else by far. I'm just like, whoa, I totally went through SEER school. Holy shit.
Yeah.
No way. Like, yeah. So that's a big thing what about you? Do you have any?
Man, I think leadership is the biggest thing that I learned.
Oh, that's second.
Huge, how to truly be a leader. I watched.
Because there's a lot that are bad, and if you can learn from that too. Yeah.
That's a big one. But there's a lot that are good.
Yeah.
And they're good in their own way. And I think what's unique about many people, and I try to live my life in a similar type of fashion, and that is if I see something that I like from someone, whether it be leadership, whether it be whatever it might be, I want to take that piece of them, right? Because I don't want the whole thing.
No. Yeah.
Right? But what I want to do is, this guy understands how to be relatable, how to get down to people's level so that he can understand the problem they're having and then actually fix it. Or this is something that I had an NCO do, Sergeant Gonzalez. He wouldn't fix the problem for you. He would ask you questions so that
you got to your own conclusion.
You get to your own conclusion so you can figure out what you need to do. Not me.
The smart guy.
He's like, nah, I'm a fucking grown-ass man. I got my own kids and shit.
Yeah, right.
Have you thought about this, though? And then he would just walk away. And you're like, oh. Right? And it would make things click. And the other thing...
That's someone who has a lot of wisdom and dispels it in small doses.
Small doses. He just knows where to kind of...
Go ahead.
Little tap that way. Right. And then all of a sudden, your whole life is mapped out for you.